Today we're doing the controversial video of ranking the 2020 F1 driver seasons and how it went for them and what I thought of it. Now, this video is going to be, controversial. There's going to be a lot of debate, but being totally honest, of course, I don't mind, what the comments are. Everyone's got a different opinion. There's no right or wrong opinion, and ultimately we all have a different one. So there's going to be naturally some people who disagree with me and others that do. Now, with that said, guys, in this video we are going to rank the 2020 drivers. But before I do, I want to give a quick shout out and a huge plug to Aarava, because this video, I've nabbed it from his channel. He did it the other day, and I thought, you know what, why don't I do my version of this and give my thoughts and opinions and my own ranking. So I'll leave Aarava's channel, guys, linked down below, and his video also linked down below in the description. So go watch that one first and then come back to this one to see what I have to say differently to Aarava. And I urge you guys to do the same. So feel free to let me know what your rankings are. And yeah, we're going to jump into it. So if you guys are going to enjoy the video, at least, even if you don't agree with me, then leave me a like. It'd really help me out. And if not, then subscribe for more content like this on the channel, especially heading into the off season. So yeah, any help would be massively appreciated. Also, we could hit 54,000 subs today. So if you want to hit the red subscribe button, it would really help me out. But without further ado, let's get this video underway. Well, here we go, guys. This is it. We're going to jump into things. This is the order we have the drivers in, and we're going to see how this goes. I'll leave a link, guys, to this tier maker down below in the description as well. So if you guys want to give it a go, let me know what you think. But let's kick things off then with Antonio Giovinazzi. To be fair, you could probably do these two at the same time. Gio and Kimi both had very similar seasons. I feel like with the Ferrari-powered cars, you've got to take a pinch of salt because of the Ferrari engine issues. It's been very hard to judge, especially Alfa and Haas, where they are in the pecking order. So it's a bit tricky. I do feel like Kimi's had a slightly better season than Giovinazzi, but has he had that much of a better season? I'm not really sure. So I am going to go straight in and put both drivers into average straight away. I don't think neither of them have had a terrible season to the point where they need to be binned. They've both had their moments. Giovinazzi is the best starter on the grid. He's getting the most places on lap 1. And Kimi's had a lot of memorable moments this season as well. Like, for example, in Portimao, where he was running up in the top 6 and had that insane start. So I think both drivers haven't been terrible or great. I would have loved to have seen for 2021 Callum Ilott maybe potentially alongside Kimi. That would have been pretty exciting, but I digress. I'm going to go average for both Alfa drivers straight off the bat, and we then move into the other Alfas, the AlphaTauris. And first of all, Pierre Gasly. Now for me, Pierre has been phenomenal this year. I've got to be honest. He won a race, which is incredible, after that podium last season, well, the season before in Brazil, and he's been the most consistent driver in the midfield for me, or at least one of the most consistent ones. When you look at his results, his points tally, and also considering the car he's driving, the AlphaTauri tends to kind of fall away in the second half of the season. Pierre's had a very, very strong year. His best year in F1 for me by far, and I think he's had an insane year. The question for me is, do I put him in biblical or great? If there was something in the middle, I'd probably put him there, because for me, Pierre's been, I think, my driver of the season, I think, potentially. If not, it's very close. I'm going to go great with Pierre Gasly, I think. Now, in terms of Danny Kvyat, it's been a tricky one for, Daniil this year. I think for a long time now, and it's been confirmed this morning, Yuki Tsunoda will step up to AlphaTauri. But Kvyat hasn't had a terrible year. I feel like he's had some good moments. He has scored some decent points this year. And to be fair, even though he knew he was going to be getting replaced, his last few races of the season have been very strong. He outperformed Pierre in Abu Dhabi. And to be fair, Kvyat has not had a bad year by any means. It's just that Pierre's had such a good year, it's made Kvyat's year look pretty average. So with that said, I'm going to be a bit generous to Kvyat. I'm going to go good with him. I think he's been a bit overlooked and a bit under the radar. I think Kvyat's had a decent season. If you look at his points tally compared to last year as well. So I'm going to say Kvyat has had a good year. Up next, we're going into Ferrari, and this is the big talking point. Of course, Charles Leclerc massively outperformed Sebastian Vettel this year. And to be fair, with Leclerc, it's pretty straightforward. He's had one of his better ever years in F1. He did have his mistakes though, so because of that, I'm going to put him in great. So, for example, the second Austrian Grand Prix, the Styrian Grand Prix, when he took out himself and Sebastian Vettel in that race and DNF'd both cars. That, for example, potentially cost the team some points, in their race in the midfield. And those moments still show that Leclerc could still improve as a driver. And also, for example, the little mistakes like at Turkey when he could have finished second, ended up finishing fourth. Those little moments where it's not a big detail, but it shows Leclerc is still a very young driver and he has a lot of developing to do. But even then, Leclerc's had a phenomenal year. He's drove the wheels off that absolutely terrible red car, and I'm never going to call it a Ferrari because it isn't a Ferrari. And Leclerc has shown he is a top 3 driver on the grid, or top 4 driver on the grid without a doubt this year. I don't think you can argue that. Leclerc is a future world champion. As for Sebastian Vettel, though, it's been a bad year. No one can dispute that. It's been a rough year for Sebastian Vettel. For whatever reason, it hasn't worked out for him. The car's not worked. His highlight being Turkey, and to be fair, you could say Vettel got a bit more of the bad luck when it comes to the team and the strategy and the pit stops compared to Charles Leclerc. Like, for example, Imola springs to mind. Vettel had a few bad stops in the Sakir Grand Prix as well. There's been moments where Seb's got it wrong, but then again, himself, he spun in the Austrian Grand Prix, the first race, trying to overtake Carlos Sainz. Overall, looking at it, altogether, it's between average and bin for me. It's very, very close. I'm quite a nice guy. I don't tend to be too harsh. And if you're up to me, I don't think I'd put any driver in the bin. But for the sake of the video, I'm gonna say average. I think the podium at Istanbul, at Turkey, saves Vettel from being in the bin. Had Vettel not got that podium and hadn't scored those big points, Vettel would have been in the bin for sure. But that podium in the wet, a really good drive, I think that just saves him from being in the bin category. Now, Romain Grosjean up next and Kevin Magnussen, both Haas drivers again. We've got to be a bit fair. The car has been terrible. They've got a big problem with the Haas car, which something along the lines of the suspension overheats and it changes the balance of the car. And you combine that with the really bad Ferrari engine, it makes for a very unpredictable and bad car. And these two are not bad drivers, as we saw in 2018 and 2016, for example, with Romain Grosjean. So I want to kind of separate and take the Bahrain Grand Prix incident out of the equation here. For the sake of ranking the video, obviously I'm really happy Romain made his full recovery and is on the mend, which is great. But for the sake of the video, I am going to say, I think, this is going to be really harsh, but I am going to put Romain in the bin. Even before the incident happened, it kind of felt like his time was up. It felt like it last year in 2019. He managed to get his seat for this year, but it kind of felt like Romain was running, a bit out of time with F1, and the time was right. And incident aside, I don't want to get that involved too much in the ranking. I didn't think Romain had a great year, so I'm kind of treading carefully here. But I'll be honest. Now, Magnussen again. It's a tricky one to judge, but I am going to put Kevin in average. And the reason for that is because he did score the team's first points in that race in Hungary where he got P9, which was a great race, a great strategy call back in that race where, they took a gamble with the tyre compounds and they benefited massively and managed to hold on to that in the Haas car and finish in the points. So for me, that was a really good performance from Kevin. And again, that standout moment, similar to Sebastian Vettel, that one moment, just kind of stops him from being in the bin category. Whereas with Romain, right now in my head, at least right now, I can't think of a performance this season where, he deserves to not be in the bin category. So I'm going to stick with that for the Haas drivers. Up next is going to be McLaren. And to be fair, you can rank these two together. They pretty much finished neck and neck when it comes to points in the championship. They were neck and neck in qualifying score, race score, literally between each other. They're literally identical. So we're going to rank them both together. McLaren had a great year, a really solid, stepping stone year into next year with Mercedes engines potentially, and with Daniel Ricciardo coming in. I feel like they scored some really good points and were probably the most consistent team, I think, across the whole year out of all the midfield teams. So for me, both McLaren drivers are going to go, I'm going to put them, this is tough. I'm going to go either good or great. I'm not sure where I want to put them. I'm going to say great. McLaren got third place in the Constructors, which is massive for them. For the first time in years, they've been that high up. And I think they both had really good years. They both got podiums this year. And, it's fully deserved. So I'm going to put both McLaren drivers in there and literally ranking them together. Up next, it's Mercedes. And this is going to get spicy because, first of all, we have Valtteri Bottas. It's a tricky one with Valtteri because with qualifying, the gap on average between him and Lewis, I believe, is like a tenth, which is nothing, maybe even less than a tenth on average. But he did keep, it was unfortunately always him getting out qualified. Having said that, I'm not going to judge him on qualifying. I'm going to judge him on race performances, and that alone, Hamilton has been a lot stronger. Bottas, I will admit, has had a lot of bad luck this year. He's been very, very unfortunate. But having said that, hand on heart, if I look at it as a whole, it could be his worst year as a Mercedes driver. It's kind of on par with 2017, but in 2017 he was new to the team that year, so he's been here for a few years now. So for that reason, I'm going to say I think Bottas has been average. I think I'm between average or good. I'm really not sure. I might come back to this one. I'll go good with Bottas. I'll go good. He has had his wins. He's been very unlucky, so I'll go good with Valtteri for now. So we'll stick him in good. As for Hamilton, without saying biblical, 7-time world champion, the most race wins so many times this season, and he's turned up when it matters, and he's shown why he's one of the, I think in my opinion, top 2 drivers of all time. So Lewis fully deserves to be in biblical. I don't think anyone can dispute that. Yeah, for me, Lewis fully deserves it. It's the biggest title winning margin he's had as a driver, whenever he's won the championship, over 100 points over his own teammate, which is absolutely massive. So yeah, fully deserved for Lewis, going straight into the biblical category. Now Renault, this is an interesting one actually. Esteban Ocon back in F1 after a year sabbatical. Ricciardo now officially leaving the team for McLaren, but Ricciardo had been there for a year more, and I think that showed quite a bit. Esteban really picked up his performances in the second half of the year compared to the first half, but still a big qualifying record for Ricciardo, I believe 15-2 if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna put Esteban, I think, in good. His year as a whole hasn't been that bad. He's had a few standout performances, he scored some decent points, and he got that podium in Sakir. I think that podium in Sakir takes Esteban from average to good, in my opinion. He kind of got better as the year went on, and he outqualified Ricciardo in Abu Dhabi as well. So I'm going to give Esteban the good category. As for Ricciardo though, he's going straight into great. He's had a really good year. 2 podiums, could have been 3 at Mugello, but unfortunately got overtaken by Alex Albon. Daniel's had a really great year. To be fair, he's had a bit of bad luck and reliability issues in the sense that he could have got that podium a bit earlier in the year, but still Ricciardo's had a really strong year. And I think, to be fair, after 2019 he's reminded everybody the caliber of driver he is and why he's one of the top 3-4 drivers on the grid, in my opinion. So I'm really excited to see what Ricciardo does next year at McLaren, but for me, he goes into great. Really strong year from Daniel, and I can't wait to see what he does next year in the McLaren. We then have both racing point drivers. Sergio Perez, without a doubt, he goes into great. He finished, I believe, 4th in the Drivers' Championship, having retired in Bahrain when he was on for a podium. He retired in Abu Dhabi as well, and he missed 2 races because of COVID. So he missed 4 races this year pretty much, because of issues, and he still got 4th. He won in Sakir. To be fair, I'm tempted to put him in biblical. I really am. I think he's had a really, really strong season when you consider it. And you know what? Actually, I'm gonna put Perez in biblical. He won the battle of the midfield. He finished best of the rest in 4th place in the Drivers' Championship. And like I said, he'd done it missing, 2 races where he wasn't in the car at all. So yeah, you know what? Perez is going to go biblical for me. I think he's had a great year. The rumours have changed. He could be going to Red Bull. Apparently that might get announced on Friday. So yeah, Perez for me goes in biblical. He's had a great year. Probably the best year of his entire career, I think. And that's saying a lot. I think he's probably done better than 2012. So credit to Sergio. A really, really strong year. As for Lance, I'm going to go good. He's had a much better year. I think he's improved as a driver a lot. I think he's shown that he has got raw pace. The pole position at Istanbul was really, really impressive. Also got a couple of podiums, I believe, at Monza, and I think there was another one in there somewhere. I can't remember right now. Either way, Lance has been very, very good in my opinion, but he has had those races where he does go missing a little bit. He's not really anywhere. He's kind of a bit lost. The first half of the season was quite meh with Lance. I feel like he took a bit longer to get up to speed. I'm going to say good for Lance, but I do think, he's getting better as a driver, and I'm actually, my opinion is changing on him. I think he's really, really improving. So for me, Lance goes in good. We then have both Williams drivers, and Latifi and Russell. Tricky to say with Latifi because Russell seems like a really, really quality driver. Oh, this is tough. It's between bin and average for me. Neither driver scored points in the Williams this year, but Latifi did get a few 11th places, I believe. and he hasn't been miles off. Like, he's been much better than what Kubica was last year. But is he, you know, besides the financial backing, in terms of competitiveness, is he the answer to Williams' struggles? I'm not sure. I'm gonna say bin. I might have been a bit harsh, but when I look at the drivers in average, do I feel like he's had as good of a year as Raikkonen or Magnussen, for example, who are the kind of cars he battles with in that lower end, bottom of the grid? I don't think he has. And the Williams at times has been a quick car. It has had pace. So I'm going to say bin. Now, with George Russell, it's between good and great. I'm probably going to put George in great. But he did have his moments, running in P10 in the points in Imola, and he threw that away with a silly mistake. That does take down the points a little bit. I think what has done it for George is his qualifying record is incredible. He's been so close to the points multiple times, but what pushes him into great for me this year is the way he drove a Sakir. The qualifying 0.025 off Bottas in qualifying, and then he completely dominated the race, and he was looking on course to win it until the very end. So George goes in great for me. And finally, it's going to be Red Bull Racing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to cut through, and I'm going to do Verstappen first. Now with Max, it's a tricky one. I'm debating biblical or great. Max won 2 races this year. I believe he was on the podium every single race except for the ones he retired in, or I think he had 1 race where he finished 6th, I believe. Max has had his moments. He could have won the Turkish Grand Prix easily, but he went for a very stupid move on, I believe it was Lance Stroll, and he went for a spin, and that cost him the race. Max was a bit too aggressive at times, but I think overall, I think it's his highest scoring year in F1. I'm very, very torn here between biblical and great. Considering how close he was to Bottas in the standings, I'm gonna go biblical. I'm gonna put him in there. I think Max had quite a few DNFs. The first Austrian Grand Prix when he was running in the podium positions. Max has had his issues, and I think had it not been for those, he could have definitely been a lot higher up. The car, when I believe the car let him down at the race start in Mugello, which caused him to drop down the order and then got caught up in that crash. Yeah, for sure. I think Max, has had a great year this year. His best year in F1, 2 race wins, and has been the nearest threat to Mercedes. And to be fair, if that Red Bull, which to be fair this year was a really bad car compared to last year, I think a lot of people forget, because of Ferrari how bad they've been this year. Red Bull have kind of gone under the radar, but Red Bull's car this year was not as good as last year's car. For me, Max will go biblical. I'm going to give him that. As for Alex Albon, I'm going to say he's been good. I can't be too harsh or too fair with him in that sense. I think he's had a good year. 2 podiums. Should have had more. I think that has to be said. Not always down to him, like when Lewis crashed into him at the Austrian Grand Prix. But I'm going to say good. Upon further review, I've had a bit of a look at the final season standings. I am going to demote Kvyat to average. And the reason for that is because Sebastian Vettel outscored him. And the AlphaTauri has been the better car this year, in my opinion. So that's a bit of a sticking point. So I'm going to put Kvyat back down to average. He did end the year strongly though, but I think overall that's going to be my final list. I'm happy with that. I think that's fair. I think you can debate if Max was biblical or great. Yeah, overall I'm gonna stick with that. If you guys agree, then leave a like. If you don't agree, dislike. Maybe tell me why in the comments as well. Give me your thoughts and opinions. Once again with Romain Grosjean, I'm taking the accident out of it and just looking at his season as a whole before that. So hopefully you understand. And yeah guys, that's going to be it from me for this video. Subscribe for more content like this during the off season. We'll do a little predictions video for next year as well, and we'll see how this goes. But guys, that's going to be it from me here today, and check out the 2 videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already, and I'll see you all next time for another video. But until then, take care, and it's goodbye from me.